Everybody knows the southernmost continent. It's called Antarctica. This piece of land is one of the newest lands discovered by modern people. A very far away place that has a different type of weather than anywhere in the world. Antarctica is also known as the biggest desert in the world. The weather is so dry that the experience is much worse than any other desert. Insane winds go by this place all the time, and it's one of the windiest places in the world. You might say, if this land is all ice, then why is the weather so dry? This place is so cold that there's pretty much no moisture in the air, and if there is, it freezes and falls to the ground. The first people that passed by Antarctica was in the year 1820. They get near this land with their sail ship, but it was so darn cold that they didn't dare get off at this location, and they basically do a U-turn and turn back home. The stories that were told about this place at that time were very scary, and a lot of people didn't want to go near it. But after 75 years has passed, in the year 1895, modern humans land on Antarctica for the very first time. A place where not only is there no humans, but there is no land mammals. And the only mammals you see are these seals. Except these seals, you see a few different penguins as well. Right now, a lot of people live in Antarctica, but it's short-lived and they're not here permanently. They come here for experiments and return home after a few months. So nobody stays here for super long. And Antarctica is unique in a way where thousands of people live here, but nobody actually owns the place. Seven countries claim ownership of Antarctica, and it's cut into pizza shapes around the continent. Chile, Argentina, the United Kingdom. You might ask, why the UK? It has something to do with the Falkland Island, also called Malvinas by the Argentinians. And in the 1980s, these two countries went to war for this piece of land, and Argentina was forced to give it up to the UK. Norway, Australia, France, and New Zealand. France and Norway have claimed in the 19th century that they own a piece of this land, and their part, just like every other part in this area, is not recognized by any other country. The only real one that's recognized between countries is the British part and the Australian part, but since they're under the same monarchy, it doesn't really count. And none of the other countries recognize each other's land. These divisions is nothing real, and they're not fighting over it. But the continent is basically counted as an international zone, and anyone can come here and leave. Like for example, if the US or China wants to go to Antarctica, they don't need to ask for permission from Australia or Argentina. In the year 1959, Argentina said that the entire continent of Antarctica belongs to me. And that is why powerful countries around the world, including these 7 nations that claim a piece of this continent, got together to sign a treaty, the Antarctic Treaty System to be exact. One of the rules that they signed is that nobody is allowed to claim ownership of Antarctica. No army is allowed to be present in this continent. So that means there shouldn't be any weapons on this land as well. Just like we said, the people that visit Antarctica are usually scientists, and they're trying to experiment different things. And they come from different countries around the world. Anybody can send their scientists to this land, but it has its own rules. You just can't go there without permission, because if you go there and don't know what you're doing, you can easily get killed. There is no cities, there's no real roads, there is no real hospital, no hotels. But people can enter Antarctica if they pay the fee. If you decide to visit Antarctica, you have to have a team with you so everything goes according to plan without you getting hurt. Anybody that pays for the fees and the cost of the people, they can enter the continent. Kind of like what Mr. Beast did. One of the most famous YouTubers, Mr. Beast, took all his friends to Antarctica just to record a video. None of them were scientists, or they were not trying to experiment on anything. They just wanted to make a cool video. Some say no, the earth is flat, And the ice wall is basically the wall preventing us from falling off. And that is why nobody is allowed here. But all we can say is get your money together and visit Antarctica for yourself. Astronomers love Antarctica as well, and they believe this place has the least light pollution in the world, and it's one of the best places to study the skies. But what is the weather like in Antarctica? The edges obviously have a better weather, and this is the place most of the animals live. But the more you move towards the center, the colder it gets, and it also gets drier. The hottest weather ever recorded in the center of the South Pole was minus 12 degrees centigrade. And the hottest section in the edge of this continent was minus 1 degree centigrade. But these are the world records, and it's not always this hot. You might think that it's always snowing in Antarctica, but that's where you're completely wrong. This place is so dry that it barely snows, and at the maximum, it gets about 5 to 8 centimeters of snow. The ice you're seeing on this piece of land covers 98% of the continent, and its age is millions of years. If you've seen our video about life on Pangaea, you see that the South Pole is in the south section of the globe, and it's not cold. It's connected to Australia and even the Indian subcontinent. This was 300 million years ago, but after Pangaea broke apart, the South Pole, or should I say Antarctica, began to get colder, and the ices started to form in this piece of land, and the ice remains to this day. The ice is so old and thick that they could shave the ice and create runways, and an extremely heavy airplane like the C-17 can land on it over and over before it actually needs a repair. Any person that wants to enter Antarctica, they have to come by plane, but the tools, equipment, and food has to come with ship. The most common air travel comes from New Zealand, specifically Christchurch Airport to McMurdo, Antarctica. Each year, more than 5,000 passengers come from New Zealand to Antarctica, and the flight time is about 5 hours long, and you have to pay a lot of money if you're not a visitor from a government. There are a lot of different bases but different countries around this piece of land, but the most important one is directly in the South Pole, and it's owned by the US. The US has a lot of different bases, and between them they have created roads, but not an asphalt road you're used to. They basically shaved the ice and made it a flat piece so they can drive on it. But it's not cars that drive on these roads. It's basically sleds with equipment, tools, and stuff on there, and it's pulled by a tractor that is made for the South Pole so it can handle all that weather. So it's no ordinary tractor you're seeing here. It's interesting to know that airplanes are not allowed to land or take off at nighttime in Antarctica because the weather is so cold that it could damage the equipment, and that is why it's illegal to fly at this hour. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. 7 months out of the year, Antarctica is dark. So 7 months we have no flights? Yes, it's off. If the nighttime is starting and someone is deciding to stay in Antarctica, they have to stay there for 7 months before somebody can come here and pick them back up. The only people that can stay here long term are the ones that remove their appendix, and that's only for if it starts to hurt while you're in Antarctica, it doesn't end up rupturing and killing you. There are doctors, but there are no surgeons to take care of you. Let's not forget, the ones that stay here for 7 months are part of a professional team, and they have trained to be here. Not just any old Joe can be here. They won't ever allow a tourist to stay here overnight. And the reason the professionals stay is that they have to run experiments in the winter time of Antarctica, and it doesn't work in the summertime. You might ask yourself, what is this piece of land good for anyways? Antarctica is one of the most important places on the planet. Do you know the thickness of the ice that's laid on top of this land? It has an average thickness of 2,160 meters. This is 90% of the ice that's on planet Earth, and 70% of Earth's fresh water is in these ice, and that is why they're not allowed to pollute Antarctica whatsoever. Anything we do, there's a danger of damaging the fresh water, and they don't want that. As you know, fresh water is at a shortage in many places, and a lot of experts believe the next wars will be fought over water. Most of the fresh water in the world is in the South Pole, and a little bit of it is in the North Pole and Greenland. There are not really any eastern countries except Russia that have a proper base in Antarctica and are actually experimenting. What do you guys think?